just want to hop straight into this thing. The reason why I kind of wanted to, and I'm glad that you're on because you most certainly have a, uh, you know, your foot in the game. We can call it like that. But you know, E28 M5s, right? I've come across a few lately that have been, how do we say, not only were they for sale, but they were on sale. And I like to see that because it seems like it's going to make, uh, a car like, the E20 M5 accessible to some that maybe were, didn't really like where it was going price wise. But then it's also kind of bad because, it's like, what's that going to do for the value of other E28 M5? So what really kind of sparked this was, so now I'll throw it up on the screen here if I can figure that out. Hang on. Is this one right here, Here you have a 88 at $22,000, which is actually less than I paid for mine.
I think it's a great price. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great price. At least it looks well, right? We know that there is
It looks like shiny paint,
yeah.
It doesn't look like it's a wet car, you know what I'm saying? Like some people will do that when they're selling their cars. They'll just make it wet so it looks shiny.
Right on. And you have, all right, we've got Brooklyn there, at least for a second we had him. And yeah, there he is. Can you see and hear us?
I can see and hear you. Can you see and hear me?
I can see and hear you.
Hey,
This is
if
being
Jordan can,
recorded
if
for
Jordan can
quality
play with the flu,
purposes
if Jordan can play with the flu, I can.
and for internet fame. So one of those two things.
Right.
Game 6.
Yeah.
Game 6.
So at any rate, the mileage is, I like the mileage actually. I think that's a sweet spot for certain BMWs. By the time BMW's at 173,000 miles, I think that it's to the point where all of the things that are broken and need to be replaced either are, it's either going to be very obvious or it has been replaced at that point. So, just skipping down. So just skipping down, let's get to the part where, that's given everybody pause. Small bit of rust, driver's floorboard is the worst spot around jack point, smaller issues here and there, no major rot. So, with you see a car at this price, we've seen E28 M5 sell for higher than, in high 20,000 range, low 30,000 range, probably in comparable condition. So, what do you think that says about the market for one? And two, is this something that you're willing to take a gamble on given the, and Adam, I know you're coming from a different standpoint as maybe, let's say, Brooklyn, just because of your knowledge of the E28. But with all of that being said, what does that present to you?
I'll say, just right off the bat, even, that price is actually not bad for a nice non-M E28. You know what I'm saying? And
Right.
to be totally fair, the rust is, good that it's being closed up front, but also that's not uncommon rust. The floorboard maybe being rotted out is not the best thing, but the jack points, I mean, that's common to my knowledge. So I really kind of surprising that a nice non-M E28 would sell for 22 grand, I think. And that wouldn't be like a super strong price. I think that might actually be like a okay price.
Yeah, it's a good price for sure. This is the part of life where I wish I had a pole barn to stash all of these, because I feel like this is something that you could put a little bit of money into, and if you you could find the right buyer down the road, a year or two, you enjoy it and still be able to get your money back out of it. So definitely hey, look, this is for sale and on sale,
I
I
think
think you can have fun. I think you could have fun with it at this price point. You're not paying an EAG price. What I love about classic BMWs is that even if you've ever driven a clapped out BMW M, it's still a lot of fun, right? And then to the point where you don't notice until you change the suspension, and then you're like, my God, is this what it was supposed to be driving like the whole time?
Right,
It's been
right.
fun. And now I went from 60% to 100%, and you can't believe it, right? So they're really good at making I feel like this about classic BMWs, right? You can get most of the enjoyment um, that an EAG car will give you, right? An E39 M5, an E28 M5, it is a fantasy to drive an as new, just like it was in 88 or 2003, just like it was brand new car. But also, even if it's not 100%, it's still pretty good. Rust is not going to stop you from enjoying your E28 M5.
Yeah, it's not. It's and this is the where the comfortableness comes in. It can seem scary to somebody on the outside. Now, don't get me wrong. Body work is that can be a deal breaker for a lot of cars, when I'm looking at them. You don't want to be in a situation where you get a car and then turns out that it's what's the saying, Adam? It's Fred Flintstone. Yabba
Or
dabba do. You're like, you can read the amount of rocks in the ground just by looking at the floorboard. So yeah, you definitely don't want to be in that situation. But I think that when you're new to the game, when you're on the outside looking in, you're going to go one or two paths. You're going to completely ignore things like that, or you're going to say, "Hey, I know what I'm getting into," and then get yourself into it.
Well, I think there's a couple other things to kind of consider here. Is that's, to my knowledge, the first price. So I feel like there might be a little bit of wiggle room in there, and I always kind of like mentally give 10% for wiggle room,
Right,
right?
right.
Which would take it just barely. If you did a true 10% of 22 grand, that would take it, just under 20 grand, which is again a huge, or a hugely great value, in my
Yeah,
opinion. The other thing to consider is, and this is kind of taken my experience over the past couple of years driving all over the United States, is that legit you are not seeing these cars on the road, right?
yeah,
Now,
yeah,
now there's still plenty of them on the road, and I will contend that a lot more of them are on the road 40 years later or 30 years later than current cars will be 30 or 40 years from now. But they are really not on the road, and becomes even a smaller sample when you consider the M's. So what is it, 1,300 and
it was 1,245 or something like that.
Yep.
that were delivered to the United States. And there are tools for kind of looking up how many we think are left, but legit, they're just not on the road right now. So
Yeah, for sure, for sure. They're not, and we don't have to turn this into an E28 5 M5 E28 M5 love fest. Okay, let's do that. It- it's and I always say I picked up a book. We were, like I said, we were at St. Pete Beach over the weekend, and I was like, Motor Trend had this magazine, and it was like the 100 greatest cars of all time, and they've done it before where they named all of these greatest cars. And you guys hear me say this all the time. You cannot write the history of the sports sedan without mentioning the E28 M5. Not definitely can't write BMW's history without the E28 M5. And it was such a good car, and is such a good car, that, you know, even the E34 M5, it wasn't until they put a big honking V8 in there and a 6-speed manual transmission that people really finally start to, you know, chip away at what the E28 M5 had done and kind of rebuild it in the image of the E39 M5, because it's rare that you see someone saying the E34 M5 is better than the E28 M5. So, you know, this one here on Bring Your Trailers still has 5 days left, but it's hovering around 23,000. I don't, you know, I really hopped on here to kind of look to see what the comps are and where things were pre-COVID, post-COVID, and I could have done all of that. But we all know where this stuff kind of ended up and where it started and ended up. I think that's you know, that one on Facebook is just a great example, a really good example. I'm not going to say great example. That's easily accessible. You know, just like we're talking about real estate, location, and that's right down the road in my second home, Asheville. I would love to, like I said, if I had the space, and I would definitely be looking at that. What would I ultimately do with 2 E28 M5s? Who knows? But, you know, that's a problem we can all figure out later.
Well, I think it's a great example of showing that there are still deals out there. You know, while $20,000 isn't exactly pocket change,
Right.
it is also. I think we could all consider it or agree that it's a deal.
Yeah, for sure.
Especially with a little bit of wiggle room on price. So this one that you're showing on your screen, I don't know where this one is and what the mileage is, but I
Yeah.
imagine that 28,000 is just the floor.
Yeah, that, you know, you're gonna have the, you know, the snipers come in at the last minute, and this one appears to be in, you know, presumably better condition. You know, Bring a Trailer requires you to, you know, to dissect the vehicle and really show everything, but it gives you a good barometer to see what, you know, everybody puts it in their ad. Oh, on Bring a Trailer, they're going for $50,000. I'm like, yeah, but yours is not on Bring a Trailer. So there's that. But yeah, this is a beautiful example right here as well.
Where's this one?
This
Like
one is in
the woods, kind of look North Carolina-ish.
Here's
uh
my thing, gentlemen. I'm trying to be really good about not interrupting and waiting my turn. This is my thing. The gold standard is the air-cooled 911, right? Call it an 87, or let's call it 88, 911 Carrera, right? When you think about how much fun you can have for 20,000, 25,000, 30,000 in an E28 M5. A $30,000 E28 M5 is a great one. A $50,000 E28 M5 is really nice, right? So if you want to make a comparable, you're going to have to be rolling in a 60, 70, $80,000 Porsche 911, right? As we've seen, you know, we've been following that realm, right? And while those cars are, you know, an 84 to 88 Porsche 911 Carrera, while those cars are great, in 1988, you were sticking with one in your E28 M5, right? And that's what the fame was. You were driving this supercar and you could still bring your kids to school in it, right? You were driving this Q ship. So at $20,000, $23,000, you're getting a lot of car, right? And E28 M5s are world class. They're one of the greatest sedans in history. They are the sports sedan.
right.
And so it's still a lot of, you know, even though they've allegedly skyrocketed in price over the last decade, you're still getting a lot of bang for the buck,
Absolutely.
especially when you're like, I want a 911 and I can't touch a 911, you know, at that rate.
Gotcha. And that's, and conversely, it's you mentioned the 911 comp factor, and oddly enough, and Adam, maybe you can back me up here. When I bring Bob out to car shows and Cars and Coffee and Amelia and all this stuff, invariably, I always run into somebody that says, I used to have one of these. And I'm like, oh yeah, cool. Oh, what'd you bring here? I'm like, oh, I got that 911 right there. And I'm like, oh really? I was like, and I was like, how does it compare? And they were like, he was like, and the guy told me, he was like, I love driving that car. And I was like, more than a 911, I'm just getting straight to it. And he was like, it's a different kind of good. It's good, but it's a different kind of good. It's really, I've never heard somebody say that the E28 chassis is not a fun car to drive, and they always miss it, and a lot, these guys that come and talk, they're like, oh man, I had it, I wish I never sold it, I wish I never sold it, which speaks volumes about if that car can compare to air-cooled 911s today. I think that's that helps justify the price sometimes. And yeah, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, they were trading for $10,000 less than they are now. But I think that sometimes some things are just worth what they are worth. Now, question: what's your ceiling for a E28 M5 driver? Where are you drawing the line?
Ceiling, like price wise?
Yeah, like, reasonably speaking, and you're, right here, right now, where are you like, hey, this is, Pakistan, and this one is was last registered in St. Simon's Island, which is, if I stumbled enough, I could land in St. Simon's from my house.
Okay, so it is Florida. I mean, well, goodness. Wait, that's the one that's on Bring a Trailer.
Yeah, the one on the Bring a Trailer, yeah.
My ceiling would be like, well, here's the thing is I might value and like I might value and I want to spend my money in a different way than you guys, but honestly, anything over like 35, and I think I would be scared to drive it.
I got you. Yeah. You kind of get into that. This is, and that's really kind of like where I'm at with the E30 M3, right? Let's just say hypothetically that I'm staring down the barrel of the E30 M3 and it's 75 grand. Am I driving that to vintage? Am I, and I know there's a couple guys that do it. I was driving home from vintage a couple years ago and there was a red E30 M3 and the guy's just motoring along. Now he had a cage in it and all of that stuff. So I'm sure he actually tracked it, but that's a fair point. You get into that, 1990s bungalow money and you're like, why am I driving this? Even though if something happens, you're going to get recouped. You're going to get taken care of.
Sure. It's a risk.
Yeah.
It's a risk. And then you would have to find another, which isn't getting easier day by day.
Exactly.
I wish you had I wish you had gotten a little more statistics on the Bring a Trailer stuff, because I'm wondering if the sales volume is kind of going down some. Maybe I don't know. I'm not plugged into it like maybe you are, but I'm wondering if maybe. Well, I mean, you can kind of see there's a dead spot right there. When is that? Is that
Which
winter?
one?
The most recent one.
Around here?
Yes.
Yeah, around here. That's earlier this year. Yeah, that's earlier this year.
Okay.
Yeah, right around here. Yeah, that's
I think
in the 40 to 60 range.
No, I'm talking about time wise.
Oh, as far as like, there's just weren't that many being sold.
Right.
Yeah, I kind of know that does happen. You do have scenarios where you just kind of see them, like you said, the market just kind of dries up. And I feel like it's in a spot where everybody's either hanging on to them or they're enjoying them and they're not letting them go. And then this is, in the E39 M5, there's like 2 Facebook groups that are really nice guys. They all love the E39 M5, and they absolutely, it's like an ebb and flow to guys selling there. And I'm gonna tell you what happens. This is what happened. Somebody will sell their E39 M5. Let's call it a Silverstone on black, right? Like black sport interior, whatever they call it. A O2, 120,000 miles. Maybe never had the engine cracked or anything like that, but all the basics. Maybe it's lowered exhaust, yada yada yada. And they'll sell it for like 39. It'll be like sold 39,000. And then somebody will be like, I have one that's way better than that. And I'm only in 20. And, and then for sale. And then the next guy will be like, you got what? And then it goes, and then and you hear guys, they'll have bought these E39 M5s from other guys on the board, and they'll keep them for a while. And like you said, the market will kind of go like this, and then the inventory will kind of dry up. And then sometimes it's like you can't go on there without seeing guys just dropping for sale. They're like, I never thought I'd do this. I don't want to do it. And I think that when you see one sold for a certain amount of money that you didn't think that they would go for, and that's where you get the term testing the waters.
Well, I think you're seeing this graph here actually in this sales graph is over time. You're kind of seeing okay, it was steady all the way to 2020. 2020 right. Is going up, and then it kind of peaks. If you take out those top three peaks of those right. Last three peaks, it shows like a little frown, it peaks.
It does. You can see it right there. You see how it goes. Yeah, you can kind of see that,
and you can kind of see right now. It's like actually kind of falling off a cliff, unfortunately, except for really nice ones. Those really nice outliers.
Those outliers, you're right. Except for those outliers, you'll have just some relatively good deals. And as Brooklyn alluded to, you're talking about a $20,000, $25,000, $30,000 E28 M5 is a good freaking time. Once you get, whatever it is that you need to sort, you can sort, and it's a good time. And I think it's well worth the admission for the experience. I sent that article earlier about BMW and the new M5, and Brooklyn and I talked about it last week. And like I said, it's with the regulations and with how a manufacturer has to spread the technology throughout the range, not just of the 5 series, but that's the technology that's going to end up in the 7 series and the 3 series and all the other series that they have. It makes no sense to have the one-offs. It makes no sense. It's just financially impossible for them to just make a dedicated car like the E28 M5. Granted, it shared a lot with the regular E28, but just Adam, and Brooklyn to a degree, as well with the S38, that there's a lot of things that are super unique to the M and to the M engine and the M chassis that you're not finding it anywhere else. So that's something that's just not going to be happening today. You can have all the money in the world and you can buy 10 of the new G, whatever they call them, M5s, but it's these cars are from a time period in automotive history that will never be repeated again.
Well, I contend that that news of the G90, I think it is, I contend that news is going to actually help out all the previous M cars. If this is the way the M is going to go, people are going to really flock to the V8s,
right.
the naturally aspirated cars that are, not compromised, if you want to call it that. Some people might feel that the hybrid is a feature, that they want, but I think the vast majority of driving enthusiasts are going to prefer the naturally aspirated. And so I think
it's a different beast, and they've done a real good job of masking that turbo, the boost coming in. But once you experience a naturally aspirated engine versus a turbocharged engine, it's just a world of difference. You know, to keep it pedestrian, Heather's Tucson had like the 1.7 liter turbo, and it was just not a linear experience. You know, you felt it on, you felt it off, you're going through a turn and you're trying to hurry up and beat the light, and it's just like, you know, it wasn't a 930 Porsche 930 experience, but it was enough to where you're breaking traction halfway through the turn in a front wheel drive, the inside one tire fire. You know, that's in the grand scheme of things, it's not that big of a deal, but we're driving her MDX, which has a naturally aspirated V6, and you know, and it's the torque curve is just, you know, just nice and straight, just goes up like this, pulls nice and even. You don't have to worry about the boost kicking in the corner or waiting for you know, for it to build up or anything like that. So, you know, I'm planning on, for my E39 M5, I'm gonna get the vanity plates, and it's gonna read "Last Real M," just to piss off any other M owners post 2003.
You should have got the plate Widowmaker on the Tucson.
Yes. Baby Widowmaker. Oh, well, you know, that thing's probably a Coke can by now, but at any rate, so Brooklyn, what do you think is a ceiling really for an E28 M5 in terms of a driver? Where do you feel not comfortable in either purchasing it or purchasing it and then driving it?
I think $30,000 is about, you know, is about enough. I wouldn't have a problem driving it at that. I've never really been, you know, attracted to, you know, EAG often has a repeat E39 M5 that's just like mine, white on black, and they want $199,000 for that, right? And I'm like,
That's house money. That's how, no, I can say that. That's house money. I've seen a house for sale. That's house money.
right. And so I'm like, while it would be, again, great to have a factory fresh E39 M5, what could I do with it that I haven't already done with mine? You know, but it also lets me know that I could put, you know, $20,000 into paint and restoration and mechanicals on mine. Wow, that's a beautiful M5 in that photo here. You know, I could pour a bunch of money into mine and then have, you know, while it won't be EAG, because EAG is like, it's only new once, right? The EAG stuff is they get a car that is low miles, babied from birth, and you know, they don't have to restore as much as they have to just tighten it up. But again, you can't drive a $200,000 M5 to Target and walk in, you know,
without walking back every 2 seconds. Now, I will give you, Tesla has a little, I know you walk past them and you see the little cameras in the A pillar or B pillars. You know, I guess that's, you know, this 88 M5 here sold for $90,000 on
When?
Range Trailer earlier, or 2 years ago, June.
Wow.
And you know, I'm gonna
it's sold for
be
what?
$90,000, bungalow money, as I call it, right? And you know, just visually, it has those tinted taillights. Garbage. That would literally go into garbage after my $90,000 check clears. And
I just feel like you mentioned the Jersey plates. Maybe we could get a little bit.
that is everything I need to know. Jersey plates. Good night, nurse. But other than that, this thing is beautiful. It doesn't have a factory radio. I'm a big factory radio guy.
It doesn't even have window tint, does it? It's got tinted taillights, but no window tint.
Ugh.
Oh man,
Cosmoline's present.
that is hilarious.
Yeah. So we'll just kind of run through the pics here. I mean, it's beautiful.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of tinted taillights on
And it
anything.
has some kind of, I don't know, Adam, help me out there. That's not BBS, right?
Hold
Is
on,
that-
that's Euro.
technically-
That's got Euro bumpers too.
Yeah, it's got Euro bumps. That
That's
front
that's
bumper
BBS.
kind of weird. BBS. And it has side skirts as well and a rear skirt.
Yeah.
That's super rare. And it actually looks really well.
Go back to that previous picture. One more. I'm trying to figure out what kind of front air dam that is. I don't know.
That's what I was saying. That front air dam, it's some kind of, I'm sure it's in the description. I'm probably just wasting my life by trying to guess, and it's probably in the description, but yeah. I mean,
it's a good looking car.
Yeah,
90,000. Yeah.
Wait, is that the EMP stuff? Go back. BMP?
What is that? What it is?
Oh yeah, I think so. That's a one piece. Okay, so it's not numbers, it's just like
one.
one.
So it's a BMP one piece.
I think so.
Yeah.
The boat.
So it's all plastic.
Correct.
BMP design out of Charlotte?
I can't remember.
Yeah, that's the BMP is the chip that I have in my M5.
Still, 90 grand is nothing to sneeze at. Somebody liked it.
Somebody did.
Is that what it sold
was some
for?
kind of bidding war.
$90,500.
Let's see here.
Go on. Tell me how you feel about it. You made a face.
I can't do it.
Right. Exactly.
I mean, it's a, as they say, is the juice worth the squeeze? The juice is not worth the squeeze for me at $90,000.
Well, the other famous quote is that there is an ass for every seat.
Yeah.
And clearly somebody had to have this Jersey, this product of New Jersey.
That's pretty amazing. I can't believe that sold. That's the highest E28. Well, all right. Now let's take. And then the King of Sweden, his M5 sold for
$140.
Yeah, for $140. Which I like. And this guy's still alive, right? The King of Sweden.
Oh yeah,
I saw that car actually earlier this year before it was on sale.
Did Evo
you
sell
saw it in
it?
person?
I saw it
Where?
in San Diego. It was green everything. Let me tell you, green everything.
$140,000.
Like seats and carpet?
I believe so. Yeah. I want to say the dash, but I might be making that up.
Wow.
No,
is it black on black?
No, it's black on green.
No,
The King of,
no. The one he's showing right now.
Pardon me.
Is that the $90,000 one?
No. This is the King of Sweden. This one sold for $140,000.
So it's green on black.
Yeah, looks like it's green on black.
It's a beautiful car.
I thought it had interior stuff that was green. I might be making that up.
Looks like the dash is like a hint of green, from what I can tell. But listen, there's an ass for every seat, and $140,000, $90,000, or $22,000. And just like Brooklyn said, you're gonna get the same experience.
Yeah, it's gonna be very similar. I mean,
yeah.
When you're rolling the twisties, when you're on Tail of the Dragon, there's not gonna be a big difference between your 20, especially you're in second or third gear. There's not going to be a big difference between your $23,000 M5 and your King of Sweden M5 at that clip, right? And that's one of the most fun things you could do in your classic
Exactly.
BMW.
Yeah, that's
Um,
where the money's at, you know.
so, you know,
And I wouldn't doubt that, you know, these, you know, people that are paying, you know, like I said, nobody asked me if I'm buying a $90,000 E28 M5, you know, but I can assure if these, I'll say this, I think that a $20,000, $25,000, $30,000 driver is, you know, classic car, and I'll put this into almost any classic car. I think it's going to be worth more to the owner than the 90, 100, $150,000 classic car. Because like I said, what are you going to do with it? You know, what are you going to do with it? You know, I can take my M5 to Target. I can leave it in the driveway. I can have it parked at a hotel overnight. And, you know, granted, do I want something to happen to it? Absolutely not. But I am not freaking out because I think that somebody's going to ding the door and ruin the finish on there, even though I will kind of freak out if that happens. But, you know, life is going to go on. I've actually done more damage to my cars in the garage where these two cars sit at, than them being outside the house. I've done more damage. I've dropped things, you know, all sorts of stuff happens to these cars in the garage. And it's usually my fault, which really pisses me off. But that's another story for another day.
Good point is that, you know, you aren't afraid to drive it. And I mean, just like you said, you'd be willing to do pedestrian stuff with it. You're also willing to take it to Asheville, take it on, you know, take it on. You don't know what's, you don't know what's around that next blind curve or whatever. But I wanted to ask you what your ceiling is. I think you kind of mentioned it just a couple minutes ago, but I'm wondering what your response to the ceiling question is.
Yeah, I mean, I paid, you know, I'll let the world know. I paid $22,500 for my E28 M5. My ceiling is $22,501 that's the max I'm going. All right. But it's, I'm with right there with Brooklyn. You know, I think that when you start talking $30,000, that's, you know, that's a lot of money for, given the propensity of BMWs. We can all attest to going out to the garage and cranking the car up, hopping in it, and you're just like, and by the time you get to the stoplight, you're like, what is that sound? Like, what is going on? Like, why isn't this working? What, you know, so dropping $35,000, $40,000 on a BMW, and I know that I can end up being faced with another, you know, either weeks long wrenching sessions in the garage, or having to take it to a specialist to have them fix it, or I got to buy this part. I got to keep that, you know, you pay 35,000 and everything's fixed, or you pay 20 and then you just spread out the 15 over time. You see what I'm saying? I'll spread it out. I'll put the headaches on layaway. I have no problem with that.
That's great.
Yeah, you know, unless something changes, you know, if the opportunity to become the King of Sweden opens up, then, you know, we'll start talking about some higher priced cars. But for right now, we're in that. And this is the great thing, though, is that as we just this one right here, just last September, or I'm sorry, December, so 26.5, right? That's a sweet spot there. You know, and this is bring a trailer. So let's say this was sold locally, you can knock off $2,000 off of that price, you know? So you're talking about, you know, being able to get a really cool car at a good price with a great engine, great transmission, good experience. And, you know, what I really love about, and, you know, you guys can fill me in if the E24 is just like this, but working on an E28 is almost like, it's like an RC car, right? There's just all these little different bits and pieces, and this works here and this works there, and you got to buy this to get this to work. So it's a fun car to work on. I'll say that for sure. You can really get in there and personalize it and make it your own, while you're crying in the background about what just broke. So that's another benefit to getting a car that might have, might need a little love. Why not? You buy that, going back to that one on Facebook Marketplace. Okay, so it's got some body work that needs to be done, right? Raise your hand if what, that's a good skill to have. Why not invest? You invest in a couple wire wheels, you figure out how to bang out some sheet metal, you get your little Adam, you gotta figure out how to listen, we've all done it, right? We've watched these guys on whether it's Instagram, TikTok, or YouTube, and you look at these guys doing this stuff, and I'm like, I can do that. I know I can do that. But then Brooklyn, what do you say? You're like, I should have went to page 2 when it said get the blowtorch. Like, I forgot that step. I didn't have a blowtorch.
Right.
I forgot that. But yeah, hey, listen, you can really wrench on these cars. You can really work on them. Getting one that has a little bit of body work is concerning, especially when it's the R word. But you got to, like you said, it's a risk reward thing, and I think that's a reasonable amount of risk for a tremendous amount of reward.
Yeah, and kind of going back to your point about the new M5, I think people are going to start to realize exactly how valuable these classic M cars are.
Right.
And I don't know how much they're going to be selling the G90 for. I can't imagine it's going to be, the base price going to be under 100. But I don't think, the staying power of the car, now that you're introducing batteries and stuff like that, it's not going to last 30 years. There's no way.
Right.
And then
it's definitely not going to be. And if it is, those things are going to be hacked to pieces. I'm sure some kind of recycling firm is going to find out that this part of these cars manufactured through these years, you can turn it into thong sandals for Cambodian refugees or something, and then next thing you know, it's it's a new run on the market for them. So we know those cars aren't really who knows. I mean, 30 years ago would be I kind of feel that when the E28 and the E28 M5 were in its heyday, I think that as young enthusiasts, we knew that those cars would be special eventually. That not that they weren't special then, but they would always be appreciated when the time comes. You guys know, when you're driving your E24s and your E28s, how many, maybe older generations stopped you and they're just like, dude, I love that car, man. That's so awesome. People cannot stop looking at these cars. But Adam, to your point, you're driving and it just sticks out, in a sea of SUVs and EVs and this. If you even see an E30, I mean, E36s stick out in traffic these days. You don't just blindly, you're like, was that an E36? So when I see an E30, it sticks out. When I see an E24, it sticks out. When I see an E28, it sticks out. So that's staying power there for you. Then BMW just needs to call me up. I can fix all of this. I really can.
They're a gold standard when you're talking about old school. Everybody has a story about it. Everybody loves it. Like you said, they're simple to work on, and it's not as simple as back in the day. Anybody who owned a 2002 pretty much could adjust the points with what they had in the trunk and could drive across the country, on some early Michelin star stuff where they're like, oh yeah, whatever happens, I can fix it with the tools I have with me. You still kind of have that with E28s and E24s. When it gets much newer than that, you can't even diagnose it without computers.
Right. That's for sure. Yeah. And that's a level of comfortability, right? Where if you're taking I always say that when you buy a car and you finance it for 4, 5, 6 years, generally speaking, for those first 4, 5, 6 years, it's just basic stuff. Oil change. You're making that car payment, oil change, rotate the tires, maybe some brakes along the way. But once you pay that car off, then you're still making the car payment, but it's just going to be the things that are going to start breaking on the car, right? So you might be like, oh, well, I'm in the clear. No, unless you're driving a
Corolla
1998 Honda Accord, you're going to start running into these things that are breaking, and you're going to move into, and that's why I say there's this really sweet spot with BMW. There's, I don't know how many times people call and they'll be like, man, there's this guy selling this 2000 BMW, 2011 BMW 3 Series for only $5,000. I'm like, you don't say, huh? I'm like, yeah, go right ahead, buddy. Congratulations. I always tell people, I was like, before you buy that car, find a good independent mechanic shop and become friends with them really, really quick, because I can assure you that car is staring down thousands of dollars of deferred maintenance, and they want you to pick it up. So yeah, it's cheap, and it's cheap for a reason.
Hey, didn't your kid come out on top of one of those old BMWs, or did he trade it out?
He had my oldest son, he bought and I checked it out for him. It was I don't remember the year, but it was an F80 3 Series.
Oh, okay.
Was it an F83 series? But it was the base one with the 4-cylinder, and it was nice. It was really, really nice. But same thing, Christmas tree, boom, boom, boom. We take it to the independent shop, and they're like, you need this, 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 you need this. Got to change this. And I think it was the auto stop start really wore out the timing chain or the timing chain guide, and it was just a mess. So he got out on it. He ended up trading it in for an Infinity nonetheless. So yeah, it's now eventually somebody is going to take care of all of that stuff. Somebody's going to go in there and do all the maintenance that's supposed to be done, and that's where you swoop in on the back end and you get yourself a good deal.
I agree.
Yeah, so yeah, I think that the E28 M5 has withstood the test of time. The sweet spot really is between that 20 and 30. I think that if anybody can find and wants a really good driving experience with and our friend Craig is hopefully he's not on this continent for what I'm about to say, a extremely satisfying analog experience in the E28 M5. Greg, no, it's it doesn't get any better than that, and I obviously I'm really speaking from experience, but that's just how good it is.
I agree. I've driven several M5s. I can remember almost every single one of them that I've driven, and one in particular was redone by a friend of mine in Southern California. And I remember it in particular because it had this like spot where if you put your hand out the window, put your elbow on the sill, and you had your hand hold the top of the roof, there was like a little spot right there that was kind of like worn through on the paint just a little bit. It wasn't quite as black as it used to. And I think that was where they had their hand all the time when they were driving the car. Okay. Mm-hmm. So I had a wear spot in the paint just there. That was it. Otherwise, he pretty much just brought it up to stock, and it was so smooth. I mean, smooth as silk. He got it on the highway. We explored triple digits a couple times. There was no drama, no nothing. It just did what it was supposed to do. It made all the noises it was supposed to. It was a very comfortable place to be. And I mean, you just can't, if you do these cars right, they will do right by you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Right on. All right, Brooklyn, any parting shots? We're running up on about 50 minutes here, so just want to wrap it up.
I think that well, most of my experience is with my 88 M6. It's essentially, for all intents and purposes, an E28 M5 coupe. That said, I've driven M5s, and they're a totally different experience, and they're a great experience, and I still want one at the right price. So it's a legendary car. Excuse my coughing, Jordan flu game over here. It's a legendary car, and thankfully I have friends who own them, so I get to see them and drive them every once in a while. It just has that right recipe, right? It's a great size. It's a nice amount of power. It's a great torque curve. The sound of the S38, um, shout out to S38 Fire Team. The sound of the S38 is just, I don't know if I'm saying this word right, sonorous. I
Yeah,
mean,
it is.
it's a
Yeah.
really amazing sound. BMW M did the right thing with the individual throttle bodies. Um, and it's an amazing car. It is the right formula, right? And as you alluded to earlier, we'll never get back there again, right?
Yeah.
The power to weight ratio, the way the thing turns on a dime, the way with a few basic mods, right? Wheels, suspension, um, you know, you can you can make it perfect, right? It's a perfect classic sports sedan. Um,
It is.
and that's it. Is that a Porsche 959 on your shirt there, Wolf? Can you back up a little bit so let me see that?
Is that blip shift?
I can't. You have to actually back up so I can see it. There you go. Oh yeah, that's nice. I
We
haven't
should
seen that.
shirt check started. I wanted to compliment you on your shirts as well.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
That's Brooklyn shirt is very on brand. So listen, I'm gonna go ahead and wrap it up. Thank you very much, Adam and Brooklyn Taylor, for joining me. This is S38 Fire Team signing out. See you next week.